Enoch's name resonated through the heavens, a testament to his extraordinary fate. During his mortal life, he was elevated to a status unmatched by his earthly peers. The Son of Man and the Lord of Spirits recognized him, setting him apart from those who dwelled on the earth. In a moment that defied the natural order, Enoch was carried aloft on the chariots of the Spirit, his name vanishing from among the earthly host and finding its place among the celestial. From that pivotal day, Enoch ceased to be counted among the living in the traditional sense. He occupied a unique position, set between two winds, the north and the west. It was here that the angels, celestial beings of immense power and purpose, took up their cords to measure. But their task was not one of mere physical dimension. They were measuring the place for the elect and the righteous. In this ethereal realm, Enoch beheld a sight that few mortals would ever witness. The first fathers and the righteous ones who had dwelled in that place since the beginning of time. As Enoch's spirit ascended into the heavens, he witnessed sights that defied mortal comprehension. The holy sons of God appeared before him, their forms both awe-inspiring and terrifying. These beings stepped on flames of fire, yet remained unscathed. Their garments were white, purer than any earthly fabric, and their faces shone with a radiance that rivaled the snow. The realm he entered was one of stark contrasts and overwhelming power. Two streams of fire flowed before him, their light shimmering like hyacinth. The sheer magnitude of what he witnessed caused Enoch to fall prostrate, overcome with reverence before the Lord of Spirits. In this celestial realm, Enoch found himself granted an unparalleled role. He was to be a witness to the divine, a keeper of heavenly secrets, and a bridge between the mortal and the eternal. His journey was just beginning, and the revelations that awaited him would reshape his understanding of creation itself. The revelations of Enoch. As Enoch stood in awe of his celestial surroundings, the angel Michael approached him. With a gentle yet firm grasp, Michael took Enoch by his right hand, lifting him from his prostrate position. The angel's touch seemed to infuse Enoch with a newfound strength and clarity of mind, preparing him for the profound revelations to come. Michael, radiating divine authority, began to lead Enoch through the vast expanse of the heavens. Their journey was not merely a physical one, but a spiritual odyssey that would unveil the very secrets of righteousness. As they traversed this celestial landscape, Michael's voice resonated with wisdom, revealing to Enoch the intricate workings of the universe, the secrets of the cosmos. Their first stop was at the outer edges of the heavens. Here, Michael showed Enoch the secrets of the ends of the heavens, the very limits of creation. Enoch marveled at the sight of countless stars, each one a testament to the Creator's power and creativity. Michael explained the purpose of each celestial body, revealing how they all worked in perfect harmony to maintain the balance of the cosmos. Next, they came upon the chambers of all the stars. These were not mere points of light, as Enoch had perceived them from Earth, but vast, complex systems. Michael elucidated how each star had its own role, its own rhythm, and its own purpose in the grand design of the universe. Enoch learned of stars that guided travelers, stars that marked the seasons, and stars that served as celestial timekeepers. The luminaries, the sun, moon, and certain stars, were given special attention. Michael showed Enoch the intricate paths these bodies followed, explaining how their movements dictated the passage of time on Earth. He revealed the hidden mechanisms that caused the waxing and waning of the moon, the changing of the seasons, and the alternation of day and night. The laws of the celestial bodies. As they continued their journey, Michael began to explain the laws that governed these celestial bodies. Enoch learned of the 12 portals in the circumference of the sun's chariot, from which the rays of the sun broke forth to warm the earth. He was shown how the moon followed a similar yet distinct path, its phases carefully orchestrated to mark the passing of months. Enoch was amazed to discover that there were specific angels assigned to guide each celestial body. These celestial shepherds ensured that every star, planet, and comet followed its prescribed course. Nothing in the heavens was left to chance. Every movement was part of a grand, divine choreography. The cycles of sun and moon. Michael took great care in explaining the intricate dance of the sun and moon. Enoch learned of the solar year, comprised of 364 days, neatly divided into 4 parts. He was shown how the sun moved through different portals in the east and west, its journey marking the changing of seasons. The moon's cycle was revealed to be even more complex. Enoch saw how it waxed and waned, its light varying according to a precise divine plan. He learned of the synchronization between lunar and solar cycles, and how this celestial clockwork guided the festivals and holy days observed on Earth. Enoch was particularly fascinated by the explanation of eclipses. Michael showed him how these rare events occurred when the paths of the sun and moon intersected in specific ways. Far from being omens of doom, as many on Earth believed, these were simply part of the natural order established by the Creator. The role of the angels. As their journey continued, Enoch's understanding of the angelic realm deepened. He saw how the angels were not merely messengers, but active participants in the maintenance of the cosmos. Some angels were tasked with guiding the celestial bodies, others with maintaining the balance of nature on Earth, and still others with recording the deeds of mankind. Michael introduced Enoch to other archangels, Raphael, Gabriel, and Phanuel. Each had their own domain of responsibility, their roles crucial in the smooth functioning of both heaven and earth. Enoch learned how these beings, though powerful beyond human comprehension, were ultimately servants of the Most High, carrying out his will with unwavering devotion. The angel Uriel played a particularly important role in Enoch's education. Uriel, whose name meant Light of God, was tasked with explaining the movements of the celestial bodies in greater detail. He showed Enoch the heavenly tablets, upon which were written the courses of the stars, the definition of the years, and the delineation of the months and days. Enoch learned of the precision with which these cycles were maintained. He saw how even the smallest deviation could have far-reaching consequences on Earth. The changing of the seasons, the timing of harvests, the migration of animals, all were intricately tied to these celestial movements. As Enoch absorbed these revelations, he began to understand the true complexity of creation. The universe was not a chaotic expanse, but a finely tuned instrument, each part working in harmony with the others. He saw how the physical laws that govern the heavens were a reflection of the moral laws that should govern human behavior, each action having consequences, each decision rippling out to affect the whole. The knowledge imparted to Enoch was not merely academic. With each revelation, he felt a growing sense of responsibility. He understood that he was being entrusted with these secrets, not for his own sake, but for the benefit of humanity. He was to be a bridge between the divine and the earthly, tasked with sharing this wisdom with those who would listen. As their celestial journey neared its end, Michael turned to Enoch with a solemn expression. "What you have seen and learned here," the angel said, "is but a fraction of the Creator's wisdom. Guard these truths carefully, for they are not meant for all to know, but share them with the righteous, that they may understand the order and purpose behind creation." Enoch nodded, feeling the weight of this responsibility settling upon him. He knew that his life would never be the same. Armed with this celestial knowledge, he would return to Earth as a changed man, ready to guide humanity towards a deeper understanding of their place in the cosmic order. As Michael prepared to return Enoch to Earth, the human turned for one last look at the celestial expanse. The beauty and complexity of what he had witnessed were etched into his memory. He knew that no matter what challenges awaited him on Earth, he would always carry this vision of cosmic harmony within his heart. Enoch's first dream. As Enoch returned to Earth, his mind still reeling from the celestial revelations, he found himself plunged into a profound and troubling vision. This first dream came to him while he was still learning to write, its vivid imagery searing itself into his consciousness with an urgency that demanded attention. The vision of Earth's destruction. In this dream, Enoch witnessed a scene of cosmic upheaval that shook him to his very core. The heavens, which he had so recently traversed in awe, now seemed to collapse before his eyes. The vast expanse of the sky, once a symbol of stability and divine order, was suddenly torn asunder. Enoch watched in horror as the firmament was borne off, descending rapidly towards the earth below. The impact of this celestial collapse was catastrophic. As the heavens fell, the earth itself seemed to cry out in anguish. The ground, once solid and unyielding, split open like a ripe fruit. Enoch saw the land he had known all his life swallowed up by a great abyss, a void of darkness that seemed to hunger for all of creation. The destruction was not limited to the flat plains and rolling hills. Even the mighty mountains, which had stood as silent sentinels since the dawn of time, were not spared. Enoch watched as mountain crashed upon mountain, their once proud peaks crumbling like sand castles before a rising tide. The hills, smaller but no less ancient, sank into themselves, disappearing into the ever-widening maw of the earth. Perhaps most terrifying of all was the fate of the trees. These silent giants, which had provided shelter and sustenance to countless generations, were suddenly uprooted. Enoch saw great forests torn from the ground, their massive trunks and sprawling root systems helpless against the cosmic forces at work. Like blades of grass in a whirlwind, these ancient trees were hurled into the abyss, disappearing into the darkness below. As Enoch witnessed this apocalyptic scene, a single word formed in his mind, rising unbidden to his lips. With a voice that seemed to come from the very depths of his being, he cried out, "The earth is destroyed." The sound of his own voice, filled with anguish and terror, echoed in his ears as the vision continued to unfold before him. Awakening and recounting the vision. The intensity of the vision proved too much for Enoch to bear in silence. His cries of distress pierced the veil between the dream world and reality, rousing his grandfather Mahalalel from slumber. The elder man, concerned by the obvious distress of his grandson, shook Enoch gently awake. "Why do you cry so, my son?" Mahalalel asked, his voice tinged with worry. "What lamentation causes you such distress in the night?" Enoch, still trembling from the vivid imagery of his dream, took a moment to collect himself. Then, with a voice that quavered with emotion, he began to recount the terrible vision he had witnessed. He spoke of the collapsing heavens, the earth swallowed by the abyss, the destruction of mountains and hills, and the uprooting of ancient trees. As he spoke, Enoch could see the concern in his grandfather's eyes deepen, the old man's brow furrowing with each new detail of the apocalyptic dream. When Enoch had finished his account, Mahalalel sat in silence for a long moment, weighing the significance of what he had heard. Finally he spoke, his voice grave and filled with a wisdom that seemed to span ages. "A terrible thing you have seen, my son," Mahalalel said, his eyes meeting Enoch's with a penetrating gaze. "Your dream vision is of grave moment, for it speaks to the secrets of all the sin of the earth." The old man paused, letting the weight of his words sink in before continuing. "The earth must sink into the abyss and be destroyed with a great destruction." Mahalalel's interpretation of the dream sent a chill through Enoch. The vision was not merely a nightmare, but a prophecy, a glimpse into a possible future shaped by the accumulated sins of humanity. The destruction he had witnessed was not random chaos, but divine judgment. Enoch's prayer. Recognizing the profound significance of his vision, Mahalalel urged Enoch to action. "Now, my son," he said, his voice filled with urgency, "arise and make petition to the Lord of glory, for you are a believer, and it falls to you to pray that a remnant may remain on the earth, that he may not destroy the whole earth." Heeding his grandfather's advice, Enoch rose from his bed. With a heart heavy with the knowledge of what he had seen, yet filled with hope in the mercy of the Creator, he began to pray. His words, born of genuine anguish and concern for humanity, rose like incense to the heavens. "O Lord, King of kings and God of the universe," Enoch began, his voice trembling with emotion, "your power and dominion extend over all creation. I have seen in a vision the destruction that may come upon the earth, and my heart is heavy with this knowledge." As Enoch continued his prayer, his words became more impassioned. He pleaded for mercy, not just for himself or his family, but for all of humanity. "Lord, in your wisdom, you have shown me the consequences of sin. But in your mercy, I beg you to spare a remnant. Do not destroy the whole earth, but leave some hope for redemption." Enoch's prayer was not a demand, but a humble request, born of love for his fellow man and faith in the compassion of the Creator. He acknowledged the justice of divine judgment, but appealed to God's mercy and long-suffering nature. As he concluded his prayer, Enoch felt a sense of peace wash over him. Though the memory of the vision still haunted him, he was comforted by the knowledge that he had done what he could. He had witnessed, He had understood, and he had interceded. With a heart both heavy and hopeful, Enoch returned to his bed. As he drifted back to sleep, he resolved to record this vision and his prayer, understanding that this knowledge was not for him alone, but for future generations. Little did he know that this was only the beginning of the revelations that would come to him, each one peeling back another layer of the cosmic drama unfolding around him. Enoch's second dream. As time passed, Enoch's mind remained occupied with the profound implications of his first vision. However, the Almighty had not finished revealing divine mysteries to him. Before Enoch took Edna as his wife, he was granted a second dream vision, one that would prove to be even more complex and far-reaching than the first. The Parable of the Bulls. In this new vision, Enoch found himself witness to a grand allegorical drama, played out through the actions of various animals. The vision began with a striking image, a white bull emerging from the earth. This majestic creature, pure and unblemished, seemed to represent the very essence of righteousness and divine creation. Following the white bull came a heifer, and alongside this pair emerged two more bulls, one black and one red. Enoch watched, transfixed, as this bovine drama unfolded before him. The black bull, in a sudden burst of aggression, gored the red one, pursuing it across the face of the earth until it vanished from sight. As Enoch pondered the significance of this violent act, he noticed that the black bull was growing in size and strength. The heifer, meanwhile, remained with the black bull, and from their union came forth many oxen. These new creatures bore a striking resemblance to the black bull, following in its path and multiplying greatly. The first cow, perhaps representing the original purity of creation, seemed distressed by these events. Enoch saw her depart from the presence of the first bull, embarking on a desperate search for the red bull that had been driven away. Despite her efforts and great lamentation, she could not find the lost creature. In a turn of events that seemed to offer hope, the first bull, the white one that had emerged at the beginning, came to the grieving cow. His presence seemed to calm her, and from that point on, her cries of distress ceased. This interaction bore fruit, quite literally, as the cow then gave birth to another white bull. This new generation was followed by many more bulls and black cows, suggesting a continuation of both righteousness and corruption. The fallen stars. As Enoch's vision continued, the scope expanded beyond the earthly realm. His gaze was drawn upward to the vast expanse of the heavens. There, he witnessed a sight that filled him with both awe and dread, a star falling from heaven. This celestial body, once a fixture in the night sky, now descended to earth. But it did not crash or burn out upon impact. Instead, Enoch saw the fallen star rise up and begin to graze among the oxen. This unnatural mixing of the celestial and terrestrial realms seemed to herald a new era of cosmic disorder. The disturbance in the heavens did not end with this single star. Enoch watched as many more stars followed suit, plummeting from their lofty positions and joining the first fallen star on earth. These celestial beings underwent a startling transformation, taking on the form of bulls and mingling with the earthly cattle. The consequences of this celestial incursion were immediate and alarming. Enoch observed as these star bulls began to mate with the earthly cows. The offspring of these unnatural unions were not ordinary calves, but monstrous creatures, elephants, camels, and asses. These hybrid beasts, born of the union between heaven and earth, struck fear into the hearts of the original oxen. The Great Flood. As Enoch's vision progressed, he witnessed a dramatic shift in the cosmic landscape. His eyes were drawn once more to the heavens, where he saw an extraordinary sight. A multitude of stars, more numerous than he could count, began to descend from the sky. These celestial bodies cast themselves down from heaven, joining the first star that had fallen. Upon reaching the earth, these stars underwent a startling transformation. Like their predecessor, they took on the form of bulls, integrating themselves among the earthly cattle. Enoch watched in amazement as these celestial beings began to pasture alongside the earthly animals, their presence altering the very fabric of terrestrial existence. The impact of this celestial incursion was immediate and profound. Enoch observed as these star bulls, now in their earthly forms, began to mate with the cows of the oxen. The result of these unnatural unions was the birth of creatures unlike any Enoch had seen before. Elephants, camels, and asses emerged from these pairings, their very existence a testament to the blurring of lines between heaven and earth. The appearance of these hybrid creatures sent shockwaves through the animal kingdom. Enoch saw how the original oxen, representing perhaps the pure lineage of earthly creation, were filled with terror at the sight of these new beings. The fear that gripped the oxen was palpable, their distress evident in every movement and sound. As the vision continued, the situation on earth grew increasingly chaotic. The hybrid creatures, born of celestial and terrestrial unions, began to turn on one another. Enoch witnessed scenes of terrible violence as these beings started to bite and devour each other, their actions a stark contrast to the peaceful coexistence that had once characterized life on earth. The turmoil on earth reached such a pitch that its effects could no longer be contained. Enoch saw the earth itself begin to cry out, its very foundations shaking under the weight of the corruption and violence that had overtaken it. The lamentation of the earth rose to the heavens, a plaintive cry for intervention and restoration. In response to this cosmic upheaval, Enoch's vision shifted once more. He saw beings descend from heaven, their appearance like that of white men. These celestial emissaries, 4 in number, emerged from the heavenly realms with purpose and authority. They were soon joined by 3 more, forming a group of 7. These heavenly beings approached Enoch, and to his astonishment, they reached out and grasped his hand. With a gentleness that belied their power, they lifted Enoch up, raising him above the tumultuous scenes he had been witnessing. As he ascended, Enoch found himself being carried away from the corrupted earth, elevated to a lofty place that seemed to exist between heaven and earth. From this elevated vantage point, Enoch was shown a sight that filled him with awe. A tower raised high above the earth, its pinnacle reaching towards the heavens. This structure stood as a testament to divine authority and judgment, dwarfing all earthly constructions. Enoch realized that he was being granted a unique perspective, one that allowed him to see both the corruption on earth and the divine response to it. As Enoch contemplated this majestic tower, one of the celestial beings spoke to him. "Remain here," the being instructed, "until you see everything that befalls those elephants, camels, and asses, and the stars, and the oxen, and all of them." The rebirth of humanity. From his elevated position, Enoch continued to watch the unfolding drama on earth. He saw one of the 4 celestial beings who had first descended take action against the fallen stars. This powerful entity seized the first star that had fallen from heaven, the one that had initiated the corruption of the earthly realm. With swift and decisive action, the celestial being bound the fallen star hand and foot, a symbolic representation of its complete subjugation. The fate of this fallen star was a grim one. Enoch watched as it was cast into an abyss, a place of confinement that seemed to exist outside the boundaries of both heaven and earth. This abyss was a terrifying sight, narrow and deep, its depths shrouded in impenetrable darkness. The fallen star, once a beacon of light in the night sky, was now consigned to eternal darkness. The judgment did not end there. Enoch saw one of the celestial beings draw forth a sword, its blade gleaming with divine authority. This weapon was not meant for the fallen stars, but for their earthly offspring. The sword was given to the elephants, camels, and asses, the hybrid creatures born from the union of celestial and terrestrial beings. What followed was a scene of terrible violence, as these creatures turned the divine weapon upon each other. Enoch watched in horror as they began to smite one another, the earth quaking beneath the force of their conflict. This internecine struggle seemed to represent the self-destructive nature of corruption, as the fruits of cosmic transgression turned upon themselves. As this chaotic scene unfolded, Enoch witnessed a new phase of divine intervention. One of the 4 celestial beings began to cast stones from heaven, targeting the hybrid creatures engaged in their deadly struggle. This hail of celestial projectiles added to the destruction on earth, further emphasizing the divine judgment being enacted. In the midst of this turmoil, Enoch's attention was drawn to a particular figure, a white bull that had been born amidst the chaos. This bull, unlike the hybrid creatures around it, seemed to represent a return to the purity of original creation. As Enoch watched, he saw this white bull undergo a remarkable transformation. It was not just a bull, but became a man, symbolizing perhaps the emergence of a new, purified humanity. This man-bull did not remain idle in the face of the destruction around him. Instead, Enoch saw him begin to build a great vessel. This act of construction stood in stark contrast to the scenes of destruction that had dominated the vision thus far. The vessel, large and sturdy, seemed to offer a promise of salvation amidst the divine judgment. Once the vessel was complete, Enoch saw 3 bulls enter it along with the man-bull. As they were enclosed within the vessel, Enoch understood that he was witnessing a divine plan for preservation and renewal. Even as judgment fell upon the corrupted world, a seed of hope was being protected. The vision then took on an even more cataclysmic tone. Enoch saw great fountains open upon the earth, their waters rising with terrifying speed. The flood that ensued covered the entire surface of the earth, swallowing up all the creatures that remained outside the vessel. The waters rose higher and higher, until even the great enclosure that had contained the earth was submerged. Amidst this deluge, the vessel that the man-bull had constructed floated safely upon the waters. All other living things, the oxen, elephants, camels, and asses, sank beneath the flood, perishing in its depths. This great flood seemed to mark the end of one age and the beginning of another, washing away the corruption that had taken hold of the earth. As the waters began to recede, Enoch saw the emergence of a new world. The man-bull and the 3 bulls with him came forth from the vessel, ready to repopulate the cleansed earth. From these survivors came forth a variety of creatures, beasts of the field and birds of the air, each according to its kind. The vision concluded with a scene of cosmic renewal. The white bull that had become a man was joined by other white bulls, and together they began to bring forth many cattle. This new generation, born in a world cleansed by divine judgment, seemed to represent a fresh start for creation, a return to the purity and harmony that had characterized the world at its beginning. As the vision faded, Enoch was left to ponder its profound implications. He had witnessed a cosmic drama of fall and redemption, of divine judgment and mercy. The allegorical nature of the vision, with its animal representations, spoke to deep truths about the nature of good and evil, the consequences of rebellion against divine order, and the ultimate triumph of righteousness. Enoch understood that this vision was not merely for his own enlightenment, but a message to be shared with future generations. It spoke of cycles of corruption and renewal, of divine patience and ultimate judgment. Most importantly, it offered hope. Hope that even in the face of widespread evil, the Creator had a plan to preserve and renew His creation. Revelation of Israel's history. As Enoch's vision continued to unfold, the allegorical narrative shifted, focusing now on the specific history of a chosen people. This part of the revelation would later be understood as a prophetic overview of Israel's journey through time, from its earliest patriarchs to its ultimate destiny. The era of the patriarchs. The vision began with the appearance of a white bull, which Enoch understood to represent the patriarch Abraham. This bull was unique among its peers, distinguished by its purity and divine favor. From this white bull came forth a wild ass and another white bull, symbolizing Ishmael and Isaac respectively. Enoch watched as the wild ass multiplied, representing the growth of Ishmael's descendants. Meanwhile, the white bull that represented Isaac begat a black wild boar and a white sheep. These creatures symbolized Esau and Jacob, the twin sons of Isaac, whose rivalry would shape the destiny of nations. The black wild boar, Esau, went on to produce many boars, representing the Edomites. The white sheep, Jacob, begat 12 sheep, a clear allusion to the 12 tribes of Israel. Enoch observed as these 12 sheep grew and multiplied, forming the foundation of a great nation. Exodus and settlement in Canaan. As the vision progressed, Enoch saw the 12 sheep give one of their own to the asses. This sheep was then given to the wolves, a symbolic representation of Joseph being sold into slavery in Egypt. The sheep grew up among the wolves, prospering despite its circumstances, mirroring Joseph's rise to power in Egypt. Enoch then witnessed a remarkable sight. The Lord brought the remaining 11 sheep to live with the one among the wolves. This depicted the migration of Jacob's family to Egypt during the time of famine. These sheep multiplied greatly in their new environment, growing into many flocks. However, the peaceful coexistence did not last. Enoch saw the wolves begin to fear the sheep, eventually oppressing them. This represented the enslavement of the Israelites by the Egyptians. The sheep cried out in their distress, their lamentations rising to heaven. In response to their cries, Enoch saw a sheep saved from the wolves, fleeing to the wild asses. This sheep, representing Moses, returned to lead his people out of oppression. Enoch watched as this leader sheep confronted the wolves, admonishing them not to touch the flock anymore. The vision then showed the sheep departing from among the wolves, crossing a body of water that parted before them. A clear depiction of the Exodus and the crossing of the Red Sea. The wolves pursued them but were overwhelmed by the waters, just as Pharaoh's army was destroyed. The era of judges and kings. Enoch's vision continued, showing the sheep wandering in a wilderness, led by the sheep that had confronted the wolves. This period represented the Israelites' time in the desert, guided by Moses. The Lord of the sheep went before them, his presence manifested as a majestic and terrifying figure. After a time, Enoch saw the sheep arrive at a pleasant land, symbolizing their entry into Canaan. However, their eyes were sometimes opened and sometimes blinded, representing the cyclical nature of Israel's faithfulness and disobedience during the period of the judges. The vision then showed a succession of sheep arising as leaders, some faithful and some wayward. This depicted the era of the kings, with some bringing the people closer to God and others leading them astray. Enoch saw a particularly notable sheep build a house for the Lord of the sheep, representing Solomon's construction of the temple in Jerusalem. Enoch observed as the sheep continued to stray from the house of the Lord, wandering into many different paths. This symbolized the divided kingdoms of Israel and Judah, and their eventual slide into idolatry and disobedience. The period of the prophets. In response to the sheep's waywardness, Enoch saw the Lord call some from among the sheep and send them to testify and lament over the others. These represented the prophets, sent to call the people back to faithfulness. Some of these prophet sheep were saved from attempts on their lives, while others were martyred for their messages. Despite the warnings of the prophets, many of the sheep continued to stray. Enoch saw them fall away entirely, their eyes blinded to the truth. In response, the Lord began to hand them over to their enemies, represented by lions, tigers, wolves, and hyenas. Exile and restoration. The vision took a dark turn as Enoch witnessed the destruction of the house and tower that had been built for the Lord of the sheep. This symbolized the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple by the Babylonians. The sheep were scattered and devoured by wild beasts, representing the exile of the Israelites. In his anguish, Enoch cried out to the Lord of the sheep, pleading for mercy. However, the Lord remained unmoved for a time, allowing the judgment to run its course. This period of apparent divine silence corresponded to the years of exile. After a time, Enoch saw a change in the vision. The Lord called 70 shepherds and entrusted the sheep to their care. These shepherds were given specific instructions about which sheep were to be protected and which were to be allowed to perish. This complex system of heavenly administration seemed to represent God's sovereign control over the nations that ruled over Israel during and after the exile. Enoch watched as these shepherds carried out their duties, sometimes exceeding their mandate and allowing more destruction than was commanded. Throughout this period, a heavenly scribe recorded the actions of the shepherds, keeping a meticulous account of their faithfulness or lack thereof. Return and rebuilding. As the vision continued, Enoch saw a gradual shift in the fortunes of the sheep. A small group of them returned to their land and began to rebuild the fallen tower. This represented the return from exile and the reconstruction of the temple under leaders like Zerubbabel and Ezra. However, the rebuilding was not without opposition. Enoch saw wild boars trying to hinder the sheep's efforts, symbolizing the resistance faced by the returning exiles from neighboring peoples. Despite these challenges, the sheep persevered, slowly reestablishing their presence in the land. The intertestamental period. The vision then entered a phase that seemed to correspond to the intertestamental period, the years between the Old and New Testaments. Enoch saw a succession of shepherds continuing to oversee the sheep, some faithful and others corrupt. This likely represented the various foreign rulers and Jewish leaders who governed Israel during this time. During this period, Enoch observed the eyes of many sheep becoming dim, symbolizing a spiritual decline among the people. However, a few sheep retained their sight, representing a faithful remnant that continued to hope for God's deliverance. The coming of the Messiah. As the vision approached its climax, Enoch saw a remarkable sight. A lamb was born among the sheep, different from all that had come before. This lamb's eyes were opened, and it began to cry out to the sheep, attempting to lead them back to righteousness. However, many of the sheep did not listen to the lamb. Enoch saw ravens descend upon the lambs, picking out their eyes and devouring them. This gruesome imagery likely represented the opposition faced by Jesus and his early followers. Despite this opposition, Enoch saw horns grow upon the lambs, and one great horn sprouted on one of the sheep. This great horn seemed to represent the risen and exalted Christ. The vision showed this horned sheep battling against the birds of prey and wild beasts, symbolizing Christ's spiritual victory over the forces of evil. The spread of the gospel. In the final stages of the vision, Enoch saw a great sword given to the sheep. With this weapon, they began to fight against the beasts of the field. This likely represented the spread of the gospel, with the word of God as the sword of the Spirit. Enoch observed as the beasts and birds fled before the sheep, unable to stand against them. This depicted the growth of the early church and the power of the gospel message to transform lives and societies. The final judgment. The vision concluded with scenes of final judgment. Enoch saw a great white throne erected, and the Lord of the sheep seated upon it. The books were opened, and all creatures were judged according to their deeds. The fallen stars and unfaithful shepherds were cast into a fiery abyss, representing the final judgment of evil spiritual forces and unfaithful leaders. The blinded sheep were also judged and consigned to the flames, symbolizing the fate of those who persistently rejected God's truth. A new creation. In the final scenes of the vision, Enoch saw the old house folded up and removed, replaced by a new house, greater and loftier than the first. This represented the new creation, the eternal dwelling place of God with his people. All the remaining sheep, along with all the beasts of the field and birds of the air, were gathered into this new house. Enoch saw that they were all white, their wool pure and abundant. This symbolized the final purification and glorification of God's people. The Lord of the sheep rejoiced with great joy, for all had been made new, and all had returned to him. The vision ended with a scene of eternal peace and harmony, the fulfillment of all God's promises to his people. As the vision faded, Enoch found himself overwhelmed by the scope of what he had seen. He had witnessed the entire sweep of sacred history, from the earliest patriarchs to the final consummation of all things. He understood that this revelation was not just for his own benefit, but a message to be preserved for future generations, offering hope and guidance through the turbulent course of history. With trembling hands and a heart full of awe, Enoch began to record what he had seen, knowing that these words would echo through the ages, offering insight and encouragement to all who would heed them. Revelation of the Day of Judgment. As Enoch's vision reached its climax, the panorama of history gave way to a profound revelation of the final judgment. This part of the vision unveiled the ultimate fate of both the righteous and the wicked, including the fallen angels who had corrupted the earth. The punishment of the fallen angels. The scene opened with a dramatic shift in focus. Enoch saw the Lord of Spirits seated upon the throne of his glory. Before him stood the 7 archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Phanuel, and 3 others whose names were not revealed. These celestial beings, radiating power and authority, stood ready to execute divine justice. Enoch watched as the Lord of Spirits issued a command. In response, the archangels moved with purposeful grace, descending to the earth below. Their target was clear: the fallen angels who had rebelled against God and corrupted humanity. With swift and decisive action, the archangels seized the leaders of the fallen angels. Enoch recognized among them Azazel, who had taught humanity the secrets of weaponry and vanity, and Semjaza, who had led the initial rebellion. These once mighty beings, who had instilled terror in the hearts of humans, now trembled before the power of the divine messengers. The fallen angels were bound hand and foot with chains of immeasurable strength. Enoch marveled at the sight, understanding that these bonds were not merely physical, but spiritual, capable of restraining even the mightiest of celestial beings. Once secured, the fallen angels were cast into a great abyss. Enoch peered into this chasm and recoiled at what he saw. It was a place of utter darkness, filled with roaring flames and pillars of fire that seemed to reach endlessly downward. The fallen angels disappeared into this inferno, their cries of anguish echoing as they fell. Enoch understood that this was not merely a temporary punishment, but an eternal confinement. These beings, who had once walked among the stars, were now forever separated from the light and glory they had forsaken. The judgment of the unfaithful shepherds. As the vision continued, Enoch's attention was drawn to another group facing judgment, the 70 shepherds who had been entrusted with the care of God's flock. These shepherds, Enoch realized, represented the leaders and rulers who had been given authority over God's people throughout history. The Lord of Spirits called forth these shepherds, and Enoch saw that a great book was opened before the throne. In this book was recorded every action of the shepherds, both good and bad. Enoch watched in awe as each shepherd was judged according to their deeds. Many of the shepherds were found wanting. They had abused their authority, led the flock astray, and caused harm to those they were meant to protect. Enoch saw that the punishment for these unfaithful shepherds was severe. Like the fallen angels before them, they were cast into the fiery abyss, condemned to share in the fate of those they had emulated in their disobedience. The restoration of Israel. As the judgment of the wicked concluded, Enoch's vision took on a brighter tone. He saw a great gathering taking place, as scattered sheep from all corners of the earth began to assemble. These sheep, Enoch understood, represented the faithful remnant of Israel, those who had remained true to God despite trials and persecutions. The Lord of Spirits looked upon this gathering with great joy. Enoch saw a transformation begin to take place among the sheep. Their eyes, which had been dimmed by suffering and exile, were opened anew. They began to see clearly, recognizing the shepherd who had always been with them, though often unnoticed. A great light shone upon the assembled flock, and Enoch watched in amazement as their wool, once matted and stained, became pure and white. This cleansing represented the final purification of God's people, washing away all traces of sin and sorrow. The eternal kingdom. The vision reached its glorious conclusion as Enoch beheld the establishment of an eternal kingdom. The Lord of Spirits descended from his throne, coming to dwell among his restored people. The separation between heaven and earth, which had existed since the fall of humanity, was finally dissolved. Enoch saw a new Jerusalem descend from the heavens, its foundations gleaming with precious stones, its gates crafted from pearl. This celestial city became the dwelling place of God with his people, a realm where righteousness reigned supreme and sorrow was but a distant memory. The restored flock entered this heavenly city, joined by countless others from every nation, tribe, and tongue. Enoch understood that this was the fulfillment of all God's promises, the ultimate destiny for which creation had longed since the beginning of time. As the vision faded, Enoch found himself overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he had witnessed. He had seen the judgment of the wicked, the restoration of the righteous, and the establishment of God's eternal kingdom. This revelation of the day of judgment served as both a warning and a promise, a call to faithfulness and a beacon of hope for all who would heed its message. With trembling hands and a heart full of awe, Enoch prepared to record this final vision, knowing that its words would echo through the ages, offering comfort to the oppressed and striking fear into the hearts of the wicked. The day of judgment was coming, and all would stand before the throne of the Lord of Spirits. As we conclude this profound journey through Enoch's visions, we are left with a sense of awe at the cosmic drama that has been revealed. From the fall of the Watchers to the final judgment, from the flood to the coming of the Messiah, we have witnessed the grand sweep of divine history. Enoch's final words to his son Methuselah ring out as a timeless call to righteousness. My son, walk in the ways of righteousness, and do not stray from them. For those who walk in the path of uprightness shall dwell in peace forever. These ancient visions, preserved through the ages, continue to fascinate and inspire. They offer us a glimpse into the spiritual realms that lie beyond our mortal sight, challenging us to consider our place in the grand cosmic narrative. As we reflect on Enoch's visions, we're reminded of a profound truth. No matter how far we've strayed, redemption is always possible. Like the fallen angels who faced judgment, we too have our moments of rebellion. But unlike them, our story doesn't end in eternal darkness. Remember the white bull that became a man and built an ark? That's you. In the midst of life's floods, you have the power to rise above, to build something that carries hope. Your past mistakes don't define you, they refine you. Think of the scattered sheep, lost and blind, yet ultimately gathered and restored. That's the journey of forgiveness. It's not about forgetting the past, but about allowing it to transform you. Every scar tells a story of healing. In the final vision, even after ages of disobedience, a remnant was purified and welcomed into a new creation. This is the heart of divine love, a love that never gives up, that always believes in second chances. So today, whatever guilt you carry, whatever shame weighs you down, know this. Forgiveness is not just a possibility, it's a promise. The same power that turned chaos into creation can turn your mistakes into miracles. You are not the sum of your errors, but the product of grace. In the grand cosmic story, your chapter of redemption is waiting to be written. Will you pick up the pen? What are your thoughts on Enoch's visions? Do you see parallels with other religious texts or prophetic traditions? How do these revelations impact your understanding of good and evil, judgment and mercy? We invite you to share your perspectives in the comments below. Your insights contribute to the ongoing dialogue surrounding these ancient texts. If you found this exploration of the Book of Enoch enlightening, please consider subscribing to our channel for more in-depth examinations of religious and spiritual texts. By joining our community, you'll stay updated on future videos that delve into the mysteries of ancient wisdom and its relevance to our modern world. Thank you for journeying with us through Enoch's remarkable visions. Until next time, may you walk in wisdom and light.